Welcome to Life is for Living. I'm your host, Kylee Buckley, and I'm here with David J Riddell from the School of Living Wisdom. David, can you speak into power in the regard of dominance and submission and the variances of them?
Yes, I'd love to. We see two kinds of power at work on earth today, and wherever we go, whether we're looking at families, husbands, pastors, governments, whether we're looking at nations of the world, what we see is two kinds of power. One is power for the people, one is power over the people. One is the power of the bully government, the bully husband, the bully pastor, the bully employer, the might is right doctrine that says, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm louder than you, I have more money than you, therefore my power trumps yours, my power dominates yours, and I'm into the God of cavalry. And to them, the God of Calvary, the all-powerful God who created worlds and suns beyond countability, died on a cross, naked, wretched, and whipped. That God displaying that kind of power is a total mystery to us. It's rather like the shock when a Japanese girl who came to New Zealand for study billeted with a family where the father believed in being a servant to the whole family, and the first time she saw him bring his wife a cup of tea and refreshments, she nearly died of shock. Such a thing was unknown in her culture, where a man is serving a woman. And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, the idea that strength and might makes right. And we saw it again in Once Were Warriors, where Jake the Muscle was dominating all in front of him and demanding respect from all who feared his strength. But the more he demanded respect, the more people moved away from him and disempowered him. So I think the consideration of power is central to all of our most basic assumptions about life and God and government. We've always thought of the weakness of Calvary, but surely the power of Calvary is that now Christ is proclaimed as ruler of the world, as the suffering servant to his people, the bride of Christ. And what about power as a gift? My wife loans me power to get the job done. She loans me authority. She loans me status. She loans me trust so that I can get the job done, for whatever the job may be. So the question is, which kind of power is the Almighty God kind? God is the origin of nuclear heat, power, light, and explosions. So we would assume that all of his power would be to dominate. And therefore we can easily believe that God would punish his enemies by tossing him into a bonfire, a celestial bonfire, simply because he can. But that sure doesn't square with Calvary, does it? So I think it was a bombshell to me to realize that Christ has an army, but everybody in that army is a volunteer, Kylie. There's not one single conscript in his army. In other words, his right to be Lord of this army has all been loaned to him by the people in the army. We make him Lord when we trust him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a lovingly maternal kind of power that he exercises. It's not the corrupted patriarchy or the tyranny of despot governments that we're used to. You could say that it's totally respectful of human sovereignty, which satanic power certainly is not. Marriages die when men are not respectful of their wives' sovereignty and vice versa. This is not authoritarianism. This is authoritative. This is not coercive. This is loving service. And if love really is a stronger power than force, as believed by Mahatma Gandhi, why do so many men in all governments choose force for survival? So it's a big topic, my dear, and it can be difficult to get your head around, eh? But there's a couple of really good books out there that can help. One is by Chuck Colson, who was part of the Watergate affair back in the 70s, and he wrote Kingdoms in Conflict, very good book, and showed how these two kingdoms, one spiritual and one natural, are constantly at war with each other. And there's another book to back it up on a slightly different, going in a different direction. It's called The Problem of Power, and it's by Tony Campolo. And these two authors, Campolo and Colson, they really get to grips with this whole subject. They're well worth reading, you know. And Jürgen Moltmann, who was my hero in theological study days, he asks this question in his book, The Crucified God. What kind of all-powerful God displays his strength and power by giving up all rights to be powerful, by dying, bruised and naked on a Roman cross, the powerless victim of a deeply insecure government? And Nietzsche, another famous philosopher, believed that to be human is to hunger for power. And so he avoided Christianity because he knew it would mean giving up all rights to power and control. Even the quest for power corrupts. And I do believe in this. I've seen it many times, that the more power somebody has, the more likely they are to be corrupted by it. And we've seen examples of that in our own time, haven't we?
Yeah, they say give a man or a woman power and you'll see the true measure of them.
It all comes out in the wash, doesn't it?
Yeah. And
but I think that force, the use of force and the use of coercion, whether by a man or a military dictator, it's forever the quick fix option that the insecure resort to. The more insecure a man is, the more likely he is to resort to force. And it does remind us that love and respect, unlike compliance, can never be demanded. Force in all its guises, even manipulation is force, isn't it? Is always the resort of the desperate and the desperately insecure.
And weak.
And yes, and the weak. And I think that, speaking as a psychologist, I always find that behind that bullying tyranny, there is an unbearable feeling of powerlessness or loss of control that stalks the insecure and makes them vulnerable to abusing human sovereignty. I guess we all have to control the inner control freak. We all have to renounce the inner control freak if we really want to make progress in this one.
Yes. So if you, what about then, okay, because you're talking about submission, what if your partner is like that and, because you've got here, is respect demanded or earned? And what about submission? Well, of course, respect is earned. If someone's going to behave militant, as you said, people back off.
Well, Jesus had an answer to that. He said, when the bully boy demands your coat, give him your jersey as well, so that you're still acting freely and not under coercion. And if the soldier demands you carry his pack for a mile, carry it for 2 to show that you're still a free person. Don't let them believe that they set your agenda for you. You set your own agenda.
I like that spin on it. I've never thought of it like that.
That's right. Set your own agenda by not giving into it as if it's somehow you're being dictated to.
Very good. Very good.
I think that if a lot of governments were to take the second step and do something good for their oppositional government or the oppositional nation, they would no longer succeed in propagating their people to say, this country is our enemy, this country we must fight, this country is trying to destroy us. If the country that had such a bad reputation would do some good for the insecure nation, they could come off the defensive and the war would be over in 24 hours. We only fight to survive when we think our survival is in jeopardy. But if somebody can return good for evil, they are showing that they cannot be dominated.
Very, very true. But what if that other person was totally evil and they just continued?
Well, who fights when their survival is no longer at stake? Who fights when they no longer fear? Fighting and overpowering is always based on, if I don't get him, he'll get me.
True. Yep.
Even the pacifists who didn't want to fight in the war, they were convinced to, because they said, well, if you don't kill, you will be killed. Take your pick. Now,
Very good.
it's worth thinking about this. I'll give you 6 differences. A divine power 4 is sourced in secure person or government who has no need to dominate or control to gain permanence or authority. Divine power is able to be vulnerable, to admit fault, to come alongside, to inspire, and to be open to appeal. Divine power appeals for truth by negotiation to reach agreement without fear, as in consensus. Divine power regards personal boundaries, sovereignty and dignity, and the right to undisturbed self-determination. Divine power encourages and warns, and will sacrifice self-interest up to a point, and then releases this person to their own self-destruction and their own sovereignty. And finally, divine power waits powerlessly for the restoration of loyalty. And that's why I like the verse in James where it says that wisdom that is coming from God is peaceful, it's gentle, and it's easy to reason with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you take the opposite of all those, you find that actually all of these are the opposite to human power.
True.
Human power demands submission, it demands to be served, it remains invincible, it dominates and coerces, it resorts to threats, and the desire for power and control is insatiable. And the use of force only escalates.
That's
the fate of humanity unless we accept this this example of suffering servitude.
And it's the meek that will inherit the earth, isn't it?
Yes, and it starts to make sense when you see it this way, that violent power is always on a limited life. It's always going to get overthrown, or it's always going to self-collapse. It's always going to self-destruct, and eventually it runs itself out, and the ones that remain are the people who didn't burn themselves out trying to dominate.
Yes, because it's not sustainable.
That's right. That's exactly
can't
right.
live like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And no marriage running on a power over is sustainable. It always falls over sooner or later.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, David.
Yeah, this is a big one, this one, and you see it wherever you go after you understand it.
Yeah.
When a marriage is in trouble, you'll almost always find that one of them is trying to have power over.
Mm. And do you think that behind it, like you said, is an unbearable feeling and fear and just, like you said, they just have to control?
Yeah,
It all come back to them wanting to, there'd be fear behind it.
feeling powerless is always the unbearable feeling behind abuse, the fear of powerlessness.
But really, when you abuse someone, you're putting that powerlessness on somebody else.
And that's called keeping your head above water and standing on somebody else to do it.
Mm.
Welcome to the world of the insecure.
Dear, oh dear. Oh, well, thank you, David. Another awesome insight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
final word, beware of the bully. They're not going anywhere fast.
Yeah.
Rightio. Talk again
Thanks,
soon, I
bye.
hope.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.